Welcome back to Behind the Screen. This is episode 42, and this was a change that was done a couple of months ago now on the Monday meeting notes. But because they shifted everything around to start with Tuesdays, the first day of the streaming week, because the Monday meeting notes go up on a Tuesday, well, Monday evening, and therefore obviously they used to advertise shows that had already happened. So they moved that around. So this is actually the first show on the schedule every other week because it's a fortnightly show. Um, and I still get like a thrill of anticipation, being like, "Oh, look, there's me! Oh, great, great! I'm the first one up. Oh, it's going to set the tone for the programming for the rest of the week." So anyone who watches this show, I'm incredibly grateful to you. Makes all the nerves and performance anxiety worth it. But this is we're still doing Frostlands of Fenrilik. We're still doing People of the Snow. We're not on episode 11 anymore. We're on episode 12 now. I apologize for skipping the last time I should have run this show. I needed to turn off the development side of my brain for a week, just to recover from not having a weekend for like a month solid. So I needed that time to just decompress, play some video games, that kind of thing. Which obviously it's not something you can completely turn off because I was playing games. I was like, oh, I could take this and put this in the game somehow. But there we go. That's just me. Maybe I just have that kind of brain that refuses to behave. Um, but this is episode 12. I am Comrade Bubbles, or Ryan. Call me anything really, but late for dinner. Ha, that's a classic joke. I am also disabled. Hey, Ghost of Cinders, I am also disabled. I do experience muscle spasms, which can affect any part of my body. It's a great time. Or muscle tics, depending on who you ask. But sometimes they can affect the muscles in my jaw, my throat, my tongue, occasionally my eyes. But the jaw, throat, tongue thing is more pertinent because it can lead to stuttering. And obviously, I speak pretty quickly anyway. I tried to slow down for this, but I am nervous and I speak faster when I'm nervous. But that can lead to slow speech as well, so I apologise for any of that if it makes for an uncomfortable viewing experience. I'm not apologising for being disabled, but I'm simply want to make you all aware of that. I do also struggle with multiple trains of thought, so I'll try to finish one before starting another. So if you raise a point in chat or ask a question or anything, which please do, as it says right here, there we go, right there. Please do feel free to ask questions about running role playing games or playing them. Obviously, I'll try to relate them to Onyx Path games, but where I can't, I will try to, keep the digressions shown to the point of what I was about to say, but who boy do I digress. If I don't know the answer, I'll try to point you somewhere where you can find the answer. Also, I am not an official representative of Onyx Path. Obviously, any views expressed are my own. Any work done on this show, as has been the case in the past 41 episodes, I guess, is community content. It's not going to be officially published. It's not kind of, this is the next thing coming to Kickstarter. More on that in a moment. It's my community content work that you will eventually be able to purchase once I have the time to edit it and put it in the official templates and whatnot, so it looks as good and plays as well as it possibly can. Okay, as is my want, people probably don't need this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Monday meeting notes, best place to go for any information regarding the Onyx Path and their projects. As usual, here is your rundown of the Monday meeting notes for week beginning 24th of May 2021. We'll get the headline thing over and done with. May 27th, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Eastern US. Exalted Essence is hitting Kickstarter. It is specifically Kickstarter, not Indiegogo again. But Exalted Essence is going to be a slimmed down version of Exalted 3rd Edition. My understanding is it's essentially the same rule set, but it's not a 650-page book, which, you could build a house from the Exalted Essence, from the Exalted 3 book. It's also going to have, where is it? I think it says that it's going to include splats that aren't currently in 3 yet, but it's like a preview, like how you can use them in Exalted Essence. If you're interested in how it plays, today at 9 p.m. EDT, so just under 12 hours from now. Yes, maths. I can do time zone conversions in my head. Vorpal Tales will be running an Essence game. So just come back in, 12 hours and you can see how Exalted Essence works in practice. And as usual with an Onyx Path Kickstarter, the book is going to be chopped up, chop, and chunks of text are going to be thrown at your eyes via PDF preview, so that by the end of the campaign, you will have the entire book, artless, and about 90% finished, but all the rules excellent. That 90% is editing and polishing usually, but you'll have all the rules you need to actually use the game. Also, going swiftly back to the Vorpal Tale game, Dixie Cochran, the team lead for Exalted Essence, will be playing in it. So, if anyone knows the rules, it's probably Dixie. Let's face it. Other big thing to note is that a few weeks from now, hang on, I can do maths, I can count. 3 weeks from now will be the second Onyx Path Virtual Gaming Convention. Woo! Everyone get hyped for that. The first one was a blast. The first one obviously was done with the help of I think it was Gehenna Gaming. This one's being done with the help of Start Playing Games. Start Playing Games is a website where you can hire a GM, and you can do free games as well. But Onyx Path are working with Start Playing Games to host the con games side of things. I have a game up there. I only had time for one, unfortunately, because I already had. I'm working that weekend, which is great. But it is the 11th of June to the 11th to the 13th of June. My game, if you're interested, and I'll talk about it again at the end. But my game is on at 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight. 12 p.m. Pacific, and I'm running the Scion adventure that I did for the first kind of season of this show on the Onyx Path Twitch channel, A Rude Awakening, if you remember it, written as an introductory adventure to the Scion game system, so you don't need any experience whatsoever, and it'll be my genuine pleasure to run you through that and stroke my ego at the same time by actually getting to use that adventure. If you remember, I did run that adventure about a year ago at this point, during the first kind of wave is the wrong word, but during the start of the pandemic in the Western world. I was fortunate enough to run that adventure on this channel in this time slot, actually, with some great people, and it's going to be a blast to go back to it and see how a different group of people play it differently. Good morning, Plastic Age players. So the link I dropped in chat, startplaying.game/search convention, and then the whole string of alphanumeric data. That is the games listing. So if you click on that, and then you can scroll through the games to your heart's content. You will need an account with Start Playing Games to sign up for any games, and also this time around the pricing of the game has been left to the story guide, storyteller, GM if you want to play Scarredlands, etc., etc. So be aware of that. Some will be more expensive than others. Mine's like an average of $15, and half of that goes to charity. And that's not like I'm saying half of that goes to charity. Start Playing and handling all of that, and before it even gets to the GM, half of it's going to charity. I believe it is the Bodhana Group. The Monday Meeting Notes has more information on that as well. And also, if you are interested in the Victorian era mage, I want to say Awakening 20th anniversary edition. The last day for that as like a Kickstarter backer on Indiegogo will be Tuesday evening. You can still pre-order after that, but you won't count as a backer for backer-only perks and stretch goals. Ascension, MTA, like what? It's the same acronym. I've glanced at the rules for both, and that's it. Okay, so Mage the Ascension 20th anniversary. I do apologize. Yeah, I'm wrong. I don't know anything about Mage beyond the fact that it's busted as all heck, and breaks games. You've got until Tuesday evening to get in on that before you are just like pre-ordering rather than backing. I don't have the link for this, but I think it's further down here. Right now on Drive-Thru RPG, there is a D&D settings sale on, and Yugman's Guide to Gelspad is on sale right now for 60% off. There you go. Highly recommend picking it up. I've looked through Yugman's Guide, and let me tell you, if you want a spell that turns your fingers into snakes, this is the book you want to buy. It is incredible. But it's something like 60% off, so it's worth grabbing if you're interested in it. It adds extra player options, something like I think 23 subclasses. Not evenly balanced, but still at least one subclass per class in the core rules. I think your favorite spell in there is Escape the Bonds of Flesh. I admittedly only had time to glance through them. It's on my list of things, but I'm doing research reading for submission stuffs, so I don't have time yet. But there's a lot of good spells in there. Actually, I suppose I could use those spells in this if needed. You release one skeleton from their body. Oh, good. Yes, release. That's the word. That's the verb used there. Also, I don't want to get nailed to a tree, so I'm happy to make mistakes every now and then. The name is much nicer sounding than it is. It really, really is. Those are the 4 big news things so far at the top. Also, this week is the Zeus We Just Want to Talk Tasty Bit. It's a starter scenario for Scion where you can confront Zeus about stuff. So that's going to be hype. Mentioned Exalted Essence after this. There's the usual links to actual plays. Oh, speaking of actual plays, both parts, because tech happened, both parts of my Pugmire Secret of Vincent's Tomb Jumpstart are now on YouTube for your visual delight. Again, I do apologise that it's in 2 parts. Tech happened. Nothing I can do about that. And then the panel. Oh, also going back to the start playing thing, you can still sign up as a GM for a game if you want to. The panels are up. Or the panel listings, I guess, are up. 2/3 of the way down the Monday meeting notes. If you're here, clearly you have some interesting community content, and there is a community content panel on Sunday, June the 13th at 2:30. I assume in the afternoon. My brain is saying that should either be 14:30 or 2:30 p.m. EDT, but that's because of editing training and stuff. At 2:30 EDT, community content, Sunday, June 13th. I have no idea what it's going to involve, but the one last year was a blast that I got invited to, and I'm sure this one will also be a blast even, and I will try to catch it if I have time. I should maybe have time to catch it, so maybe I'll be hanging out in chat while people who know stuff are talking. And then if you're more interested in just socializing with other Onyx Path fans, there's a Jackbox thing at the end of the con at 8 p.m. EDT. I think that's really it. There's a whole bunch of stuff in editing, so if you're looking forward to a project from Onyx Path, odds are it's probably in editing at this point. But I think that's all I needed to really talk about. Obviously, I'll give you a hurried recap at the end of the stream as well. You'll be on that panel, you think? Well, shouldn't you know? Really? Anyway, I'm going to hydrate real quick. Oh, good. I did click record. I was concerned for a moment then that I had not clicked the record button. I realized in hindsight that I can totally reference on it. Hey, I'm pretty sure I can do this, but I can reference Yugman's Guide, right? In this document if I need to. I'm probably not going to because it's an extra purchase that someone needs to buy, but it might be useful to look at for spell effect examples. Where the heck did I put Yugman's Guide on my hard drive? Because watching him schedule for this, like, hey, look, I know how busy you are. I was just assuming that you were a very organized person, and that therefore you knew your schedule. Either way, I will try to catch it, and moral support. Spells. Okay, limited liquefaction sounds great. Anything relating to Enkilis sounds good. Basically, buy Yugman's Guide to Gelspad. It's got a whole heck of spells that you'll fall in love with. It's actually even better. You can harm an enemy, heal an ally, but if you harm the enemy, they're blinded as well. Absolutely reference Yugman's Guide to Vigil Watch. Should do this with one of us. You can't take and organize it. I'll probably try not to reference Yugman's Guide and Vigil Watch just to cut down on the amount of material people will need to buy for this content. But it's definitely something I can look at as reference for spell wording and things. Okay, I don't need this document anymore. So, I'll zoom in a moment. Don't worry if you're on mobile. I will zoom in on the text in a moment. But it took 15 minutes to get through the meeting notes stuff. So, this is People of the Snow, a supplement for the Frostlands of Fenrilik, supplement itself for Scarred Lands, which is a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition open gaming license, brackets, OGL brackets, which uses the system reference document, bracket, SRD, bracket, as like the basic rules engine, and then builds on that with a new setting, with a variety of new races, ancestries, peoples, heritages. There are so many. Hang on. I noticed this in the back of Yugman's. and I was very happy it was there. Peoples, right? This is the word we're moving towards for Scarred Lands material. Yes, apparently. It gets very confusing because I use Ancestry in my Patreon 5e compatible material, but I'm trying to get those very separated in my head. Adds a whole slew of new peoples, classes, subclasses. New peoples, subclasses, prestige classes, and spells and magic items and stuff to the 5th edition SRD. If you are unfamiliar with Scarred Lands, it's basically a 1980s heavy metal cover, but as a fantasy world. Just heavy metal in general, really. We're looping back around to that style of heavy metal now, which is great. And this is just a thing to be like, hey, this is how you can write community content for the Sluritian Vault, which is what the thing at the bottom is, which is the Scarred Lands community content program. And ask questions while I'm doing it at the same time. Also, please note that this is how I do it. It's not necessarily how you have to do it. It's just designed to get you thinking more than anything. So you can see I've got 2-player peoples. Kind of seems wrong, so I'll rename this, when it becomes relevant. But there we go. If I've got the word there, I won't forget what it is. But so far we've done one subclass for every class, bar the wizard, because I didn't have time last time. So we've got a barbarian that actually benefits from working as part of a team. Scary bards, clerics more about hearth and home than anything else. Druids connected to the Aurora, fighters who excel at night fighting and ambushes, monks who are very good at manipulating the hidden desires of people. Wizards who needs... Hey, Ari, how you doing? Everyone needs wizards. Paladins who bring... Actually, this is the perfect time for Ari to join. Paladins who bring light and knowledge to the Arctic wastes of Fenrilik. Rangers who hunt Scarai being the monstrosities who have a slaving empire beneath the ice. Beneath the ice, yeah, literally. But also just... The fact they hunt them gives them psionic abilities. Rogues who just are trackers and guides. I say that like it's an easy thing to be a tracker or a guide. It's really not. People who have those skills are incredible. sorcerers whose magic comes from the wilderness itself, warlocks who have co-opted the power of immature Scarai, and then, as I say, wizards. But wizards who manipulate the weather, and that's what we're doing today. So last time we did Eldritch Invocations for the warlock. Nope, 150. And then we did the natural feedback feature for the wizard, which is just a bit of a slightly flavorful effect for when you cast evocation spells. Also, you can learn druid spells, but that's by the by. So we're going for 6th level Manipulate Wind. I had a cool idea for this. I don't know if it'll work, but as ever, I'm sure chat will tell me if it's a bad idea or not. Chat, keep me honest, please. Feel free to criticize all you want. Hopefully it's constructive and not just malevolent. There we go. Hopefully it's not Angelina Jolie. I don't know why I said that. From 6th level, your grasp of the natural world allows you to control the wind. That's very much what it says. As an action, shall provide all criticism of our video in full Maleficent cosplay. I would pay for that. Like that seems like something that people would watch. Expend spell slot of up to 5th level. If you do, choose a point that you can see, and that is within a not within. I was trying to figure out, so I had the idea for this last night. I try not to think too much about these in advance, just so you get the full stream of consciousness thought process thing going on. But I had an idea for this last night, and I spent a good couple of hours this morning, mostly subconsciously, but figuring out how to make it so that it's not overly wordy. I've mentioned this a couple of times, but whenever you're writing any kind of material for a game, it doesn't have to be Scarred Lands. It could be Scion, for example, or Chronicles of Darkness. Callbacks to those seasons. Whenever you're trying to write material for a game for other people to use, it's always worth trying to make it as concise as possible, but obviously not sacrifice clarity for it. So the original idea I had for this would have taken like 3 paragraphs to explain. And I think what I've got now is more useful and smooth and like smoother, whatever you want to call it. And that is it. Stop capitalizing it. There's no full stop. Google. Oh, I guess it was the double space. Never mind. Google, you're fine. That is number of feet away equal to 5 plus 5 multiplied by the spell's level. Multiplied it? That's not a word. There we go. By the spell slot level, because you're not actually you're not casting a spell to do this, you're expending a spell slot. Which I guess would also prevent counterspell from working, but not dispel magic, because it's, well, maybe actually, because it's not really a magical effect. It's an effect of the natural world that you're magically compelling. That is a thought to be considered later. If you do, choose a point that you can see, and that is a number of feet away equal to 5 multiplied by the spell slot level. A 5 feet, I should say. I'm gonna not hyphenate, and then hyphenate if necessary. 5 feet wide, 10 feet high, corridor, column. Column is vertical usually, but then row isn't the right word either. I'm gonna put stream of wind, cylinder of wind. There we go. That's how the game usually puts it. Cylinder of wind. stretches from you to that point and behind you an equal distance. That is horribly worded. Oh boy, that is not as clean as I pictured it in my head. Not that I pictured words in my head. I'm not a crazy person. A 5 feet wide, 10 feet high cylinder rim stretches from you to that point. And I wanted to avoid having like it's a line of this dimension with you in the center of it. You know what? I'll come back to that in a moment. I'm going to get the effect out and then we'll polish it. Any creature other than you in a space covered by this cylinder takes XD8 bludgeoning damage. How fast can you make the gust of wind? Ah, well, that's where I'm getting to in a moment. Takes XD8 bludgeoning damage. Brackets. I mean, I should step away from X values, really. But I don't have any cleaner way of putting it. So, again, this is very, like, first draft note form anyway. X is equal to the spell slot level. Must attempt a though that's D6. Ties in with falling damage more. Must attempt a strength saving throw versus your spell save DC. Creatures that fail are knocked prone. Nope. Again, must not spell save DC. Being knocked prone on a failure. And pushed 5 feet. Towards the end of the cylinder on a success. Right, so and the final kind of like in air quote combat effect, a creature who starts their turn prone in an affected space right, how to word this? I guess it's pushed 5 feet. Now, opposite side implies that they'll once they get over halfway, they'll get back. Right, I'm gonna have to have a front and back of this cylinder. 5 feet, 10 feet high, cylinder rim stretches from you to that point. Known as the front. Isn't very cleanly worded. Which functions as the front of the cylinder. There we go. Again, this is not the final wording, which functions as the rear of the cylinder. Stupid fingers, stop hitting the wrong keys. Let's push 5 feet towards the front of the cylinder. If you expended a spell slot of third or fourth level. Pushed an additional 5 feet. And if you expanded 5th level spell slot, they're pushed an additional, I'm gonna have to say 10 feet, and then like for a total of 15. They would be pushed, pushed out of the front of the cylinder. Pushed the full distance. Oh, if they would pushed. What? If they would be pushed. Okay, so this is how I'm modeling speed with this effect of it. As D&D doesn't really model speed very well, and that would require a lot of, you know, weird maths and stuff, and I'd have to research like how fast the wind has to blow to push something. I'm just going to do this. This is it. You may spend use your action on subsequent turns to maintain cylinder of wind. If you choose to do this, you must concentrate on it, on the effect. Because I'm reasoning it's going to take effort and focus to keep a cylinder of wind blowing continuously. This is still going to be much longer than I wanted it to be. Ooh. Cylinder counts as difficult terrain for any creature moving through it or moving from its front to its rear. Moves with you, and any ranged attacks that pass through it are made with disadvantage. I'm going to... Should it be a full action? I think maybe bonus action. To once you've cast it, I think maybe it's a bonus action to maintain it. Just because I don't want whoever's playing this to be like, and I keep the cylinder going and that's it. Because after the first time you cast it, so the from loose debris. After the first time you cast it, there's no actual damage involved. It's just the difficult terrain and being knocked prone, etc., etc. Also, when put into 2 columns, this paragraph's going to be monsters. I mean, they're not exactly short paragraphs now, are they? But I also need to specify... the creature that starts its turn in the cylinder or the first time I can't think of the wording for this. There are plenty of examples in the books as well. Hang on, I'm just going to reference the book for this. Please bear with me 1 second while I find the wording I need. Enters the... So I know this is the wrong size, don't worry. I believe it's size 11, yeah. Time on a turn or starts its turn there. It must also attempt a saving throw. Why is that still typing in 11.5? Google Docs, what? There we go. Okay, so, yeah, let's, you may use your bonus action on subsequent turns to maintain the cylinder of wind. If you choose to do this, you must concentrate on this effect. As part of the same bonus action, you may, move the front and rear of the cylinder. But they must remain equidistant from each other, and the cylinder must be centered on you. This effect also allows you to provide enough wind to push a... does a dinghy traditionally have sails? Does anyone know? Hang on. I will just use the vehicles provided in the books. That's probably the best way to handle it. Are there any vehicles in the SL Player's Guide? Maybe not. Right, so I need to go with mounts and vehicles section. There we go. So a rowboat, I guess a keel boat maybe. Let's say to move a keel boat. Nope, that should be for 1 hour with a 3rd level spell slot, and a galleys are huge, right? If I recall my nautical terminology. They're the most expensive waterborne vehicle, so I'm going to choose to assume they're the biggest ship D&D expects players to be involved with. Theoretically, yeah. True. This effect also allows you to provide enough wind to move a keel boat for 1 hour with a 3rd level spell slot, and a galley for 1 hour with a 5th level spell slot. Pulling the wind from elsewhere to use as part of this feature will almost certainly have narrative effects. Let's say consequences. Consequences sounds more sinister than effects. I just want to highlight the fact that this isn't magically conjuring wind. This is literally taking it from one place and using it yourself. So there are going to be consequences of that. Whether that's whatever is in a direct line behind you has just been trashed by a column of wind blowing through it at high speed, or becalming another vessel nearby where people can see what you've done, that kind of thing. Story effects to a very, very long feature. Okay, as an action, you may expend up to a spell slot up to 5th level. If you do, choose a point that you can see, and that is a number of feet away equal to 5 multiplied by the spell slot level. A 5 feet wide, 10 feet high cylinder of wind stretches from you to that point, which functions as the front of the cylinder. I think... Which reaches from you to that point? Alternatively, I could just say a 5 feet wide, 10 feet high cylinder of wind with a length equal to 10 times the spell slot level, but centered on yourself. But that's also really weirdly worded. And okay, so I'm getting myself into this bother with the wording because of a function of the D&D rules that I don't particularly like, where if you have an effect that has a range, so like Fireball is a good example, or Cloud of Daggers, and it's like we'll go with Cloud of Daggers. That's a 5-foot cube centered on a point you can see within range, which, if you're doing Theatre of the Mind combat, is like one person, right? Because it's a cube, if you're using gridded combat using the D&D rules, that actually takes up 4 spaces because you have to put it on the vertex where the grid meets, and because it's a cube effect and it reaches into a space, it technically affects the entire space, which is annoying in and of itself. But if it's a radius effect like Fireball, it has to cover half the space to apply, and the inconsistency there really irks me. So I'm trying to do something that doesn't bring that inconsistency into play, by saying this is centered on you, so it stretches like into half a space. I want it to be very clearly delineated where this spell's effect gets to, and what, if you're using a map and a grid, what spaces it actually affects, rather than having to remember how effects work if they half cover a space, but if they're a radius or a cube or whatever. This personal bugbear of mine. It's nothing to do with the game. Well, I mean, obviously it's everything to do with the game, but if you like it, if that's fine for you, that's totally fine and fair. I just have a thing about specificity and things being like exact and explicit. There are other choices within the game that I also find annoying and problematic, but there we go. Slight air quote rant aside, that's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm getting into the nitty-gritty of the wording, as much as I am. "5 feet wide, 10 feet high cylinder of wind reaches from you to that point." Okay, that's fine. So it goes from you to the point, which then functions as the front of the cylinder. It's that "and behind you an equal distance" bit that's the kicker here. And a point. Because I could say like a point equidistant to you in a straight line, but then some people would be like, you can do a right-angled cylinder, and that is not the idea here. I think I'm just going to have to suck it up and admit that we're going to have the imprecise language of centered on you. It's just the cleanest way I can do it. Okay, let's get rid of all of this. I'm sorry for wasting everyone's time. Cylinder of wind. Centered on you. And with so I don't actually need this sentence either. Think the discussion is useful? Well, then by all means, I'm glad to provide the thinking point. Talking point? Talking point. There we go. Hang on. I'm just going to create some space here so I don't... There's not too much visual stimuli. If you do... you create a 5-foot centered on you. With a length equal to the spell slot level multiplied by 10. I mean, I guess I should specify feet. The game assumes feet is the default measurement, but I guess a length in feet equal to the spell slots level multiplied by 10. When you use this feature, you must specify one end of the cylinder to be the front. And one to be the rear. Okay, so first paragraph is what you do to initiate the effect and kind of the broad stroke of the effect. Second paragraph is more detail, like more specifics about the cylinder. Third paragraph is huge but covers the actual mechanics of the effect. That could do with being a separate paragraph, actually. So, yeah. So first paragraph, how you do it. Second paragraph, any addition. You know what? Let's move that. To there for now. But to recap, first paragraph, how you trigger the effect. Second paragraph, what happens when you trigger the effect. Third paragraph, what happens as the effect continues. Fourth paragraph is how you continue the effect. It may move the front and rear of the cylinder marine equidistant from each other. The cylinder must be centered on you. This does allow you to alter the direction of the wind. So that paragraph is about the continuing effect. Then any miscellaneous rules for the effect, and then any kind of out of combat utility of the effect. Okay, I think that's a vaguely logical structure for an extremely long feature. I don't anticipate the other two features being quite as long. The wind blows rear to front, which is why that's why the creature gets pushed from the rear of the cylinder towards the front of the cylinder. That's why that's modeling. Like the wind's coming from behind you to the direction of your choice. Yeah, I'm going to lower this to D6 to tie it in with falling damage. Because that's essentially what the debris is doing. Uh, loose debris and items that are not worn or carried are pushed out of the front of the cylinder after this damage is dealt. Just to clarify that that only happens the once. Also, I'm hoping that that wording kind of implies that you can use this. So, obviously, this is set in Fenrilik, which is a polar expanse. I'm hoping that this implies that you can use this effect to clear a path with the wind itself, just like blow snow out of the way or whatever. Should I include a size restriction on loose debris? Hey, the Weary Warlord, how you doing? Should I include a size limiter on loose debris? I mean, I generally assume good faith when writing these things, but sometimes it's worth not. I'll just leave it to common sense, which may be a mistake, but there we go. Okay, so that's an incredibly long feature, but I think I'm happy with it right now. So we're moving on to vaporous control, which I need to really reword, but there we go. 10th level. Also, I'm not sure if this is a British English versus American English spelling thing, or if I'm just spelling vaporous wrong. Give me 1 second. I think I checked this last time. Yeah, it's just dialectical spelling. So this is 10th level. When you reach 10th level, you can move the clouds at will. That's really what it says. So a lot of these, in fact, all 3 of these are going to be, as an action, expend the spell slot, do an effect. But it's not casting, it's not the cast a spell action, so counterspell won't work. But Dispel Magic might, I guess. That would be up to GM discretion. I might have to put a rider in about that. Anyway, as an action, you may expend a spell slot. So the idea I have, I've got 2 ideas for this feature. Again, providing both out of combat and in combat utility, because why not? So, like, kind of the first idea, and they're both going to be included. The first idea is that you can move the clouds in the sky itself to create cloud cover or to disperse it. And then the second idea is you like coalesce a cloud on the ground to provide a fog, essentially. But one that's under your control rather than the fog cloud spell itself, which just kind of lingers. Hang on. 10th level, you have, I want to say, at least 1 5th level spell slot. You have 2 5th level spell slots. Okay. Because the usual way of, to my mind, to model things like this is the higher level of the spell slot you expend, the more powerful the effect is. In this instance, I guess it would be amount of cloud coverage you can disperse. Or idea. Why is Nightbot's Opcon not working, but Opcon does work? Oh, it's because there's a comma, I think. Anyway, because you just fixed it. Well, that's just because you're too good, Plastic Age players. Anyway, as an action, let's say. So I'm working through maths in my head. Yes. Let's also do this of up to 5th level. Mostly because I like the so I don't know if anyone's played high level spellcasters, but you can. So for people who are unaware of how magic works, I guess in D&D, back to basics, the wizard has a large pool of spell slots, and you get the higher the level of magic, the fewer the spell slots you have. So until you hit level 18, you only have 2 5th level spell slots, for example. And you'll kind of be using those a lot, but then upcasting. Sorry, you'll be using those to either cast 5th level spells or upcast low level spells for extra effect, right? But a lot of the time, some people in high level games kind of stop using their like 1st and 2nd level spell slots because they don't see the point in them. They don't think that they're going to do as much against a higher CR opponent than, you know, like a 5th level spell would do, which they don't, but there's still use for them. There's still utility there. But it does mean that you kind of end up in a situation where you blow all of your high level spells, and then you kind of just left plinking away with lower level spells, nothing wrong with that. I just want to reiterate, there's no wrong way to play D&D. If you're having fun, and if everyone else at the table is having fun, you're playing it right. Or Scarred Lands, I should say. It's just, again, personal bugbear of mine that people kind of disregard cantrips and low-level spells all the time. But there we go. But this will give you an extra use for them, but it does require some extra bookkeeping with my idea. So I'm going to write my idea out, and then chat's going to yell at me and tell me why it's a bad idea. As an action, you may expend a spell slot of up to 5th level. If you do, you may clear the sky of above you of all clouds you can see, or you may fill the sky above you with clouds. Don't get started on underrated utility spells. Oh man, I love just running spellcasters that have nothing but utility spells. Shout out to my Abjuration Wizard, whose only offensive spell was create bonfire. And we were on a boat at the time, so it wasn't even like I could drop that to do anything. But he had a lot of use outside of combat, so I wasn't detrimental to the party. I just want to point that out. It was a thought experiment. With clouds. Right, how to word this? I will explain what these two options mean below. Do not worry. I'm not going to just leave it at that. It takes a number of rounds equal to 10 minus. I'm gonna have to do this like this. You know how it's like 8 plus proficiency bonus. Right, that's just a note way of writing it before, so I can get everything down, and then I'll find the actual correct wording, because I don't know if there's anything like it existent in the books, but I can definitely have a quick look. For the effect you have chosen to no, that sentence doesn't make sense. To trigger the effect you have chosen. So if you use a 5th level spell slot, it happens instantly. If you use a 1st level spell slot, it happens in 8 rounds. Which, most combat doesn't take that long, but it's there as an option. Or also, obviously, out of combat, you don't need to keep track of that. If you clear the sky above you, you remove all weather effect. It feels like so min-maxers don't understand what they're supposed to min-max for. I mean, I try to min-max for fun, but I mean, min-maxing can just mean so many different things to so many different people, just following the same ethos, right? It's a weird thing that I don't. I get the dopamine hit of rolling high numbers. Don't get me wrong. I've played bards and rogues, and having that expertise really does help. But man, I just having a functional character trumps having a high rolling character. Anyway, remove all weather effects. 99% of all min-maxes min-max for combat total, dropping the ball in any utility outside combat. That is true. E.g. rain, blizzards, etc. And I suppose I should have a radius on this within, let's say, 1 mile of you. Within 1 mile of you, and I guess illuminate the same area with bright light brackets if it is daytime. If it would no, if it is daytime, it's just really weirdly worded. If it is possible. There we go. So like if there's heavy tree cover, obviously that's not going to be possible. And if it's nighttime, obviously it's also not possible. Although the moon can be kind of bright sometimes, so can't get your way through a riddle or a hidden door. That's true, unless the hidden door is a mimic. God, can you imagine? You find the secret door. You push the brick that is the trigger, and the door is a mimic that you've just activated. If you clear the sky above you, remove all weather effects within 1 mile of you and illuminate the same area with bright light if possible. Should I put if possible / reasonable? If you fill the sky above you... Oh wow, mimics as toilets is a horrible idea. I love it. If you fill the sky above you, mimic bidet, even worse. You get really paranoid about the toilet. The toilet is fine. You go to use the bidet. That's where it gets you. Fill the sky above you, the area becomes blanketed in dim light if it were not already in dim light or darkness. And you must roll 1d100, 1d1000. Good lord, can you imagine? Why make the door mimic? You activated the floor, which is a mimic. I really like, so there's a supplement for D&D, for 5th edition D&D called Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. I think that's what it's called. Yeah. And it provides like rules for a mimic colony where literally everything is a mimic, like the houses, the rugs, the flower pots, the tables. I just made a magic tool invention of this genre. It was enchanted to cast a prestidigitation every turn that a creature sat on it. Well, just to keep itself clean, I imagine. Anyway, you must roll 1d100. If you roll Bathroom also had a tub with stones that magically heat the water in the tub when activated. That's a really cool idea. Make a trap this unassuming streamer. Oh, hey, I thrive off of trap making. My players hate it, but hey, it's all good. If you're all equal to or magical poo-pourri, were you just building up to that joke, Plastic Age Plays? Was that the whole point of that? Lower than your class level. There are no additional effects. If you roll an even number greater than your class level. Right. To Frostlands of Fenric. Where is the book? There it is. I believe there be some weather tables in it. What a construction that sentence was. I mean, Ed ready to make a bathroom is in Sender's house in the Mississippi portent. Maybe the single product integration of yours. A magical bathroom seems totally fine to me. Let's say... I have just noticed that the weather effect table in Fenric doesn't actually include rain. Which is interesting. Anyway, how to summarize this? Your side traps. What are your opinion on D&D puzzles? Phoenix is Tundra Space Code. Oh, that's true. That's fair. That's fair. Coming here for the tips. Well, yeah, boy, is this the show for tips? Okay, no, it's fine. I have an idea. How to resolve this issue. I obviously like traps. What are my opinions on D&D puzzles? D&D puzzles are fantastic, but they're also so very easy to get wrong. You have to be very, and I've learned this the hard way. You have to be very clear with your description of the puzzle, and if at all possible, provide some visual aid, whether a handout, a sketch, a doodle, an actual representation of the puzzle for the players to engage with, because by the time they've spent like 5 minutes trying to talk about a solution to the puzzle, they'll have forgotten something about it, or they'll have misremembered, which is horrible. So puzzles are great as a traps, but with puzzles you need that visual reference there for players to engage with. Slightly easier in person, I feel, but if you're doing it digitally, you can virtually, you can obviously send a picture of what you're talking about easily enough. And found it, which I actually really like, because I find it challenges the person instead of the player's character, so it's hard to RP. So something I don't know if I've really spoken about it on here actually, but I personally don't think it's that hard to RP a puzzle, because yeah, sure, it's the person who is doing the thinking, but part of the fun in RP for me is, how does my character arrive at this idea? So like a good example, we had a puzzle in a campaign I was in where it was a Pigpen cipher, but I couldn't, I can recognize a Pigpen cipher, but I can't off the top of my head figure it out, because I know the theory behind them, but I'm not too well practiced with them. but the only person who recognized the Pigpen cipher was the barbarian. So we worked it out between us that the barbarian had encountered this as part of mercenary work, where they were, charged with protecting someone who was working with a spy who's working with Pigpen ciphers. Same with riddles. If you know the answer to a riddle, figure out how your character would know it. You don't need to go horrendously in depth, but it could just be sometimes Occam's razor. If your character has a low intelligence, just Occam's razor it. The simplest explanation, they heard it somewhere and remembered it because it was odd. You don't even need players with high intelligence to give hints to players with high intelligence stats. Any character with a relevant skill, even tangentially relevant, can earn a clue. And the longer they kind of look at a puzzle or a riddle, give them more hints as their characters subconsciously process things. And certainly more so with riddles than puzzles, because puzzles usually have like a fixed outcome. But riddles, by their very nature, are incredibly vague and open-ended. And if they come up with a sort of relevant answer, allow it. It doesn't have to be fixed. It's not a set in stone answer. Honestly, low in character, most likely won't know. Exactly. They'll be like, this is a question, here's an answer to that question. And if the answer to that question works, that's the solution to the riddle. Obviously, if it's a riddle that you have seeded extremely obvious clues for, and they've picked up on most of them, then it's probably more likely to have a fixed answer. But it's kind of that discussion about what happens if you write an adventure. I'm not saying you should do this, by the way. This is not great game design. But what happens if you write an adventure where the player characters absolutely must succeed on like a perception check to see something, and then none of them succeed? What do you do then? It's the same thing with riddles and puzzles. You need the backups, you need the redundancies, and then largely just, if you're searching an area and you have no time, or if you're going for a puzzle and there's no actual time constraint or pressure, you could just brute force it. Especially, less complicated puzzles can be brute forced. More complicated ones can still be brute forced, but just take longer. So there we go. That's my very long thing about puzzles and riddles and the difference between in-character and the difficulties relating character RP to player RP. Something's well with riddles they've figured out, and I feel like it's just unsatisfying for them, so I don't have to include it properly. Oh yeah, you can just get past the puzzle in another way. Yeah, I did that. An example of this, I put a selection of puzzles on a cliffside path leading up to a temple, and it's kind of like, prove your devotion to get through the puzzles to open the gate. One of the players just walked through he had an ability, homebrew, that essentially let him walk through objects at the cost of an expendable resource. So he just walked through the gates. He didn't even engage with the puzzle, which was totally fine. Like, that was an option he had, that his character had, and he took it and he used it, and that's what the game's all about, right? Solving problems with the tools you have at your hand, even if technically you aren't solving the problem, you're just circumnavigating it. And yeah, if the players want to break every puzzle, that's what they want to do. Nothing wrong with that. That's how they're having fun. Obviously, there may be consequences. They may not get as much information from the locked safe if they break into it as they might from unlocking it naturally. Or they might trigger an alarm, and there'll be narrative consequences down the line, but they're through the puzzle. If there's one character who loves the puzzle aspect, it's just disheartening for them. If there's only one character who likes the puzzle aspect, and they go off by themselves to do stuff, give them the puzzles then. Or give them like a long-term puzzle to focus on. Maybe as they're breaking, we'll go back to the safe thing. Maybe they break into a safe and there's a puzzle box in there, which is a long-term project for that one character to work on. it's not plot relevant, but it has payoff later for doing it for working it out. I'm going to continue with this anyway. Right, I need page numbers. The best solution here is that there should always be an easier option. The best solution really is whatever works for your table, I guess, is like the cop-out answer, but is also an accurate one. Right. If you're all an even number greater than your class level, snow begins to fall. If you expended, snow begins to fall, comma, halving all ranged. Sorry, just reading chat. Oh yeah, just have both. Have the brute force option and the puzzle. All right, yeah. If you're all an even number greater than your class level, snow begins to fall, limiting visibility to, let's say, 50 feet. No. Lightly obscuring anything greater than 50 feet away. Definitely learned a lot from this. Thank you, guys. Hey, that's the whole point of the show, to provide community for people to ask questions and to answer each other and to provide each other with answers. I certainly don't have all the answers, so I'm happy chat's here to help pick up the slack. Probs is problem, like no problem. Drop a the awesome advice. Oh, no worries, PsychoS D&D. I'm here every 2 weeks, same time. A lot more special analysis simultaneously though without taking turns. I'd love taking turns, but it's like this is the episode, the wizard's going to get bored. So something you can do with that is treat it as if you were reading like a comic book or watching, let's say, an action movie made within the last 10 years that's full of jump cuts. And the thing that would take like a panel in a comic to complete, or like 2 or 3 panels, or any time that you reckon a jump cut would happen after someone's done a couple of things, move the camera along. You can assume people are doing things in the background, but yeah, the taking turns mentality is difficult to get out of, but it's totally possible, totally doable, to juggle the spotlight on different areas of a scene. Anyway, snow begins to fall, lightly obscuring anything greater than 50 feet away. If you roll an odd number greater than your class level, hail begins to fall heavily. Dealing 1d4 cold damage to all creatures within 1 mile of you. Let's just say the start of your turn. Super restores conflict possible interaction space usually find their place in the plot. Yeah, I didn't even go that far. I'm like, this is where they are. This is where they're roughly going to end up at the end of the story beat. They can take whatever path they want to get there, and I just throw anything that seems logical in front of them. Oh gosh, yeah, Shadowrun Heist is a thing to control. Alternatively, play any Powered by the Apocalypse game that has some sort of combat sequence in it. You'll have a similar experience, but with less mental load. Is 1d4 cold damage annoying? Because I don't want to bring wind into it, because that's what the first feature does. So after that, you've got snow and hail, I guess. I'm sure it'll be fine. I was going, and then alternatively, you may create a cloud of freezing vapor. Centered on a point you can see within, let's say, 20 feet. Cloud has a radius of equal to 5 times the spell slot level. And lightly obscures the spaces it covers. Any creature that begins its turn within the cloud has its speed reduced by 10 feet until the end of its turn. End of its turn, start of its next turn. Start of its next turn. Just going to copy this and then alter the text. Use your bonus action on subsequent turns to maintain. Okay. Hang on, let's reword this. This actually needs to be below them. Otherwise, it could be parsed as applying to this as well. Either of these effects takes a number of rounds to occur. Again, I'll figure out the proper wording for that at some point. Biggest challenges are when no character interact with and all the challenge comes in environment. The word counts in the character of Sesame Street. That's a good joke. Alternatively, you may create a cloud of freezing vapor. Cloud lasts until the end of your next turn, or yeah, I don't think I need this actually. Cloud lasts for a number of minutes equal to, let's say, your proficiency bonus. That should be fine. Yeah, the trick is always managing communication during a combat. It's tricky, but totally doable. From personal experience, playing a bard. Anyway, this cloud lasts for a number of minutes equal to your proficiency bonus. Use your bonus action to move the cloud up to 20 feet. Talk about during combat or outside of combat? Either, really. The tricky part's when you have two different scenes taking place at the same time. Okay, I'm just going to make sure this makes sense and works. When you reach 10th level, you can move clouds at will. As an action, you may expend a spell slot up to 5th level. If you do, you may clear the sky above you with all clouds you can see, or you may fill the sky above you with clouds. If you clear the sky above you, remove all weather effects within 1 mile if you illuminate the same area with bright light if possible. If you fill the sky above you, the area becomes back to dim light if it were not already in dim light or darkness, and you must roll 1d100. If you roll equal to or lower than your class level, there are no additional effects. If you roll an even number greater than your class level, snow begins to fall, lightly obscuring anything greater than 50 feet away. If you roll an odd number greater than your class level, hail begins to fall heavily, dealing 1d4 cold damage to all creatures, including yourself, within 1 mile of you at the start of your turn. Either of these effects takes a number of rounds equal to 10. Oh, I guess we need a duration for the cloud cover. I guess it dissipates naturally. Dissipates naturally or until you use this feature again to clear it. Oh god, more text to read. Yeah, something the game I play in does is rather than have like have the distinct 6 seconds, is you just get a sentence. This seems like an important point in the conversation, so we're going to pan the camera over to that guy who is beating someone to death with a chair. Cloud will dissipate naturally to use this feature clear. Either of these effects takes a number of rounds equal to 10, minus 2 times spell level to occur. Alternatively, you may create a cloud of freezing vapor centered on a point you can see within 20 feet. The cloud has a radius equal to 5 times spell slot level, and because of the spaces it covers. Any creature that begins its turn within the cloud has its speed reduced by 10 feet until the start of its turn. This cloud lasts for a number of minutes equal to your proficiency bonus. You may use your bonus action to move the cloud up to 20 feet. I guess I should specify the cloud is a sphere with a radius. Something also, of course, with social characters is for games that don't have ways of dealing with social damage. Depending on how they're acting, they could obviously distract opponents. They could antagonize opponents into ignoring more preferable targets for the sake of dealing with the annoyance. Just running interference, really. Cloud is sphere with a radius equal to 5 times spell level. There we go. And is unaffected by natural wind. Let's just say is unaffected by the wind. And then arcane precipitation. I've got like 10 minutes. Let's see if I can get this knocked out. 14th level. Does integrate that into help actions, intimidation checks, and like exactly. What are your guys' opinion on talking outside of combat? I mean, I wholly support roleplay outside of combat. I mean, long NPC speeches giving information. I find that a bit tropey, and I personally don't like delivering long speeches. So what I tend to do is like give the important information as concisely as possible, and then allow the players to ask questions to find out what they want to learn about. It just avoids monologues, or where and particularly when there's more than one NPC in a scene providing information. I personally don't like monologuing or duologuing with myself, so I will just summarize the conversation and then allow the players to ask whichever characters they want the questions they want the answers to. Level. Oh, also I need to have the narrative effect thing. Pulling the clouds from or sending them elsewhere to use a positive visual on a certain narrative concept. There we go. At 14th level, your control of the weather allows you to yeah, see, my players don't really interrupt, which is what it is. Oh right. This is very Fenric focused. Is the thing with the snow? Let's say snow or rain. And then what other hang on. I'm trying to think of something, a form of precipitation that would do something similar to hail. I guess I'll just have to leave it as hail. Rain, ice pellets, hail, snowflakes, diamond dust. Ooh. I'll leave it as hail. That's fine. Hail in a desert. You're magically messing with the weather. Things are gonna happen. Future's guidelines, you can always make up new weather and blame it on time. That's true. That is very true. Gotta go, you guys. Lovely to talk to you. I'm looking for the next one. No worries, SideQuest D&D. Yeah, I'm always happy to talk role-playing. I am on Twitter. It's Comrade Bubbles. Always happy to talk role-playing stuff on Twitter. And also, I do stream as Comrade Bubbles on my own channel. I don't know why I did that. That's weird. But thank you for asking all the questions. Happy to help where I can. Yes. So again, as an action, and you'll note a lot of these ice falls, giant balls of ice fall from the sky. It hurts like hail and meth. Oof, oof. I say. A lot of all of these are going to be 5th level spell slot restrictions. One, because that's just where the bulk of the spells are anyway, where a bulk of the spell slots are, and 2. To me, the higher level spell slots represent higher forms of learning and mastery over magic. So if you're keeping it at the lower end of the spectrum, that's more the less controlled side of things, if that makes sense. So as an extreme example, 1st level spells deal damage, yes, but Power Word Kill is an extremely high level spell. that is just a very focused damage spell, or disintegrate, things like that. So that's why I'm limiting it to up to 5th level spell slots. There's nothing wrong with only having experience running 5e. Nothing at all. There's nothing wrong being a young GM either. It's all. I mean, I've been running games for 10 years, and I'm still learning all the time. People like you asking questions force me to consider things that I've never had to consider, or to consider things in a different way to what I've previously considered them as. Sorry. It's always a learning experience. You can never know everything. And the internet is a great place to ask like-minded people questions you may have. And just asking questions is a good start, so well done on that. That came out really patronizing. I did not mean it to. I do apologize. As an action, you may expend a spell slot. And summon or banish a form of precipitation. Hey, OP skill FT. I assume for the windfall. Hit me with that question. I've got another 15 minutes. I'll answer it as best I can in that time. Yeah, experience is definitely greater than age, especially when GMing. Hang on. 1, 2, 3. There are 5 different kinds of precipitation according to Wikipedia. Happily, I'm dealing with 5 spell slots. Level of spell slot you expend determines the precipitation you can control. We're young once we're all learners. We get experience as great teacher. There's value in asking the greybeards. I don't have a beard. What do I qualify as? But yeah, this is with that advice on the potential backstory. I may not be the best person to answer this because I don't really write backstories. I play to find out. Beyond, like a handful of sentences to give me enough to have the core of the character, and then during play I'll react instinctively to something and be like, hey, what in my character's past makes them react in this way to this stimuli or this situation, and then it gets tacked on. But that's because I just improv the heck out of everything as a GM and a player, and that's my comfort zone. I always feel like if there's too much written down, I feel like I have to obey that, and I'm always second guessing myself as to whether or not I'm contravening what's already written down. So, personal preference. Right, so. We'll get into the precipitation in a moment. When you summon a form of precipitation, it lasts for number of minutes equal to your proficiency bonus. Ooh, this one I think maybe you can cast as a ritual to have it last for 24 hours. Oh, gotcha. Place both other. Basically, I've created a world with 3 continents. One is the main continent of Exandria, Tal'Dorei, Two other islands. So basically, my party's full characters of a human bio and homebrew subclass which homebrew to fit its backstory. Next, I will turn to Elf, which is tied to a war of going on to a fight which is not dormant town, which fights otherworldly beasts and Tabaxi Rogue. Okay, that seems fine so far. All checks out. I do like the two-part backgrounds in Scarred Lands. That was a very good idea. Hang on, I'm going to make a note of that idea before I forget. Expand the spell slot during a ritual. The effect lasts for 24 hours. Or until you use this feature to banish it. Oops, wrong side of the period. There we go. When you banish a form of precipitation, it may not fall for a number of minutes equal to your proficiency bonus. But you do not remove its source from the scene, let's say. Having problem seeing where's tied Tabaxian. Yep, Tabaxi default to tropes. That should be a rogue Tabaxi. If you don't want to go with multiverse stuff. There we go. I don't know why that word was too hard to find. Yeah, there could be literally a rogue Tabaxi that's on the run. You could have them be. It depends how prevalent Tabaxi are in your world. They could be like magically created by someone and then cast loose in the world or have escaped. I mean, without knowing more about the world, it's difficult to obviously suggest anything beyond what chat's also saying. They could be an awakened cat that magic happened to, and now they're more humanoid than cats usually are. Or maybe that's how awakening works on your world. It gives them more humanoid features, which would explain trance. But there we go. Oops. Repetition of 4A. Actually, I will think about how best to deal with this next. I know that I obviously have the space to over. Yeah, I'll do it now. I'll do it over now. There's no one on after me for another like 10 hours, so maybe a wizard was turned over the cat is turned into a humanoid. Maybe that's one of the guys from my homebrew Pantheon is opening a portal to different planes to bring back times from. Well, maybe a Tabaxi came through by accident. Allows you to summon or banish a light rain. This has no. Create water. That gives you rain, right? I don't know if my click was picked up by the microwave. By the microphone. I apologize if it was. Also needs ranges and sizes and things. Don't yuck the yum. as well as the range at which you can do so. It covers an area equal to, let's say 500 feet. Multiplied by the spell slot level. It may not fall in an area. Centered on you, comma. It's really good. No, thank you for asking the question. It made us think about things that we would not have thought about. Get those creative juices sparking. First level spell slot. Sorry. I use summon to banish a light rain that extinguishes all exposed flames. Second level spell slot allows you to hey Wikipedia, hit me up with that list of precipitation. What's the next one? I think I'll go with snowflakes first, and then ice pellets, and then hail. So snowfall, and then I'm just gonna third, fourth, and fifth. Whoops. Helps if you put spaces in where relevant. Don't you know? Whoops, that should be one word. And then this was ice pellets. And then hail. And then oh, thanks, Plastic Age Plays. I just like making magic items, I'll be honest. I mean, really, the trick with magic items, I guess just as a general thing, the trick with magic items is if there is like a class feature you like, tone it down slightly, put it in an item. If there's a spell you like, tone it down slightly, put it in an item, or just let the item let you cast that spell. Magic items are not all that difficult to make. It's just kind of nailing down what you want it to do. At least in my opinion. I know some people really struggle with it, and I come across as arrogant saying that or belittling to people. I do not mean to. So apparently there is a form of precipitation called diamond dust, known as ice needles. So you know I'm going to include that, right? I'm not going to mess people's lungs. I'm just going to put ice needles, though. It's the difference between arrogance and accuracy. Yeah, I know that I come across as arrogant occasionally. I try not to. Allows you to summon or banish snowfall. That... and for ice needles? Hell yeah. Another thing is just lack of spells. You need to find a way to an item which has the ability to cast identifying an item. Would it make sense to make magnifying glass cast? Yeah, magnifying glass, pair of goggles, just gloves of identification. Regarding magic items, a character can spend a short rest studying an item and gain the benefits of the Identify spell. That's in the core rules. But also regarding the Identify spell, it will not, as written, tell you if an item is cursed. It will simply tell you magical effects. It does not reveal curses. As written, there's no actual way to determine if an item is cursed. I generally homebrew that Detect Evil Good works. And so you try it on, and then, it's cursed. Summoning Hoarfrost is fun, though it's caused by fog more than anything else. Yeah, well, that's why I had the the speed reduction in the cloud for Vaporous Control. That's what I was trying to model that kind of thing with that, to slow down to not fall over, or just because everything's got a thin sheet of ice over it. About cursing from starting up a PC than already being cursed by a weapon. Whoops. That obscures the area. Okay, so ice pellets. I don't want to do 3 things that deal damage. So ice needles are going to deal damage and do something else. Hail is probably going to deal damage. What would ice pellets do? Oh, ball bearings. People will fall over. Allows you to summon or banish ice pellets whilst in an area being you know what? I'm just going to copy the text from ball bearings. Is it 2 words? Probably 2 words, right? What is really? Control F ball bearing is not working in the SRD. Take me to the equipment table. I can't imagine they're not in the SRD. No, they're totally there. Interesting. How are ice pellets different from hail? The size of the precipitation. I'm making generalizations here just for ease of gameplay. Prototype curse and best means anything. Magic effects an item which heals you by damaging allies cursed or blessed. I guess it depends on the type of healing and any costs associated with the healing. What about a spell to absorb all the heat from someone and imbue them with freezing cold, stunning them? In D&D rules, that would simply deal cold damage and have a stun effect. Although narratively, it would be you'd pull body heat from them. Right, so I need to make this size 11. Oh no, that's not where I clicked. Oh, does anyone know the redo shortcut? Why is it Y? There we go. Whilst in the affected area, creature must succeed on a dexterity saving throw. This is your spell save. Spell save DC or fall prone. No. Whenever they move or fall prone. Creature moving through the air at half speed doesn't need to make the save. Some of the formatting is funky in SRD, somewhere to have extra space, which makes Trial just about useless. Yes, I am quickly learning that, because I tried... Maybe it's because I didn't put a capital. Anyway, I did try with the space and without, but there we go. Anyway, hail. So we've got exposed flame, extinguishes exposed flames, I was going to say rain. I'm oversimplifying this, but this for mechanical purposes rather than anything else. So a rain, exposed snowfall for light obscuring, ice pellets for essentially ball bearings, but over a large area. Ice needles will be the one dealing damage. So hail. How can hail be modeled? Deafen creatures. Maybe not deafened, but disadvantaged on perception, wisdom checks relying on hearing. And we'll do the D4 damage that the hail above does, and then ice needles will do more damage because they're ice needles. Okay. Deals 1d4 damage. Start of your turn to every creature in the area, not under a solid surface. Additionally, every creature in the affected area has disadvantage on wisdom. Perception wisdom checks. How long did I say this effect lasted for? Number of minutes equal to proficiency bonus. Okay. So, for those who do not know, Wikipedia's explanation of ice needles is very, very short. But they form at temperatures approaching -40 degrees, which is both -40 centigrade and Celsius, actually. It's a ground-level cloud composed of ice crystals. But as this is Scarred Lands, it's going to be metal, and it's going to shred your lungs from the inside. We good with that? Cool. Sounds very similar to how Hoarfrost forms. Yeah, it's more like Hoarfrost. My understanding of Hoarfrost is it forms on surfaces, whereas this is just like another kind of fog effect. And the Hoarfrost forms at much warmer temperatures. Fair. Right. I just want to get this finished so I can do the wrap up and end the stream. Oh, right, that should say cold damage. Whoops. Well, it's more bludgeoning from hail, right? Creatures that hold their breath or do not need to breathe are immune to this damage. Additionally, moving more than half. Additionally, any creature movies. No, moves, please. More than half. Seriously, keep fingers. Why? Why are you like this? Half its speed. Attempt a Constitution saving throw. Creature takes 1d10 slashing damage for every 5 feet over half its speed. For every extra 5 feet it moves, there we go. Over this threshold. On a failure. And half that on a success. You're expecting a 5th level spell slot. Let's do that 3d10. And that's 2d10. Well, I guess that's automatic damage. So automatic damage, usually best practice, keep it low. If there's a saving throw involved, you can do it higher because there's chances are that they'll make it, they'll succeed in half the damage anyway. But if it's automatic damage, try to keep it low. And then, of course, if you spend a spell slot during a ritual, the effect lasts for 24 hours. And hang on. As an action, you may expend a spell slot and summon or vanish. In order to use this feature, there must be at least one possible source of the precipitation present. So whether that's you creating a cloud above you with vaporous control, or the fog cloud itself, and then just expanding it, whatever. I mean, obviously this kind of wizard's not really going to do all that well underground unless there's a weather system underground, but it is what it is. I've written it now, unfortunately. But this is the only one where you are actually conjuring, forcing the precipitation from the cloud above you. You're not pulling it from anywhere else. So I'm going to say using this feature may have narrative consequences. So, like, if you're causing a rainfall for 24 hours, that's going to have an effect, right? Right, okay, so that's the wizard done, I think. Obviously some polishing needed, but 27 pages, good lord. So natural feedback lets you do a minor effect related to wind, cloud, or precipitation when you cast an evocation spell. Primal magic gives you access to druid spells. Manipulate wind lets you create a corridor of wind that you sort of control. Yes, your crops in Stardew Valley won't need to be watered. Oh, that's such a good time when it rains in Stardew. I have, rolling around the back of my mind, it's completely unrelated to the show, but an idea for a Stardew Valley role-playing game. Just kind of ticking over slowly, figuring things out when I have a spare moment. Vaporous Control lets you A, manipulate the clouds in the sky, and B, summon a cloud, summon a fog, sorry. And Arcane Precipitation lets you use said clouds to create the precipitation that you need / want. I think that's like all a weather worker really does, right? Especially in Fenrilic, the ability to summon rain will possibly be quite useful, because rain melts snow. Who knew? So before I go through the outro, next time, hopefully in 2 weeks, will be the 8th of June, which is actually the week of the con starting. So that's cool. There goes chat. I will, between now and next time, I'll think of a couple of spells, maybe a magic item or two to create. We'll go through that process on stream. And then we've got the two player people options. The two people's options, sorry, Geist and Ursid. And then People of the Snow will be functionally finished beyond self-editing and layout work for release on the Saritian Vault. So, close this tab. I do not need this tab anymore. Where did the thing go? So, as I said at the top of the episode, you know what, actually, YouTube, because I'm just going to be repeating stuff I've already repeated. I'll end the YouTube recording here. So, YouTube, thank you for watching. As ever, thoughts, comments, criticisms, questions, advice, if you feel like giving it, always appreciated. So, please do feel free to leave that stuff in the comment section below. But hopefully, I'll see you next time, YouTube.